Hey, what's up guys? I'm Corey Jones. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and or my podcast. Depending on which one you're listening to, two platforms, one same message. Today I wanted to talk about a personality trait or a mindset practice that can help you turn your life around and make it 10 times better than it's ever been. Just like with any mindset practice or perspective or change we make in life, this is challenging. And it's especially challenging to do it first. If this is not a mindset practice that you typically practice or a perspective that you have in life, it's going to require you to look at things from a different perspective and a different angle and really approach how you assess things that go on in your life on a daily basis, but it can make your life improve drastically and almost immediately. In fact, this is probably the best way that you can grow at anything, learn anything, accomplish, succeed. If you want forward progress, this is kind of how you have to view things in life. The mindset practice that I'm talking about is taking ownership, and more so extreme ownership. If you guys haven't read that book, Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink, I definitely recommend checking it out. It basically talks about what I'm about to talk about right now, much more in depth. It takes a few days to read. It's a couple hundred pages long, but it is very, it's got some fundamental techniques in there, and it's going to be very beneficial for you to read that book if you are looking to take more ownership in life and see things from that different perspective. Whether they're big or small, I truly believe that we need to take ownership for everything that happens within our lives. And I don't expect you to take extreme ownership right from the get-go, but it wouldn't hurt to try. It wouldn't hurt to have that discipline to basically look at anything that happens in your life and say, you know what, I probably did something that made this happen, or I probably didn't do something that made this happen. Whatever the case may be, it's my responsibility. I'm taking ownership for these events in my life, whether they're big, small, whether you truly believe you did or not. I think that there's really always a way to look at any situation and ask what you could have done differently to improve that situation. So I do believe that there are some things that are outside of our control. But for the things that are within our control, our actions, the way we think, the way we take ownership for things, the excuses we make, all of those things really are within our control. So if you're willing to take a step back and kind of view things from that perspective, you can make a lot of positive change in your life. Now, like I said, this can be used, and it should be used for small things and big things. I get it. Sometimes it may be a little bit more challenging, especially if something drastic happens in your life. Who immediately is going to want to be like, well, that was my fault. But nonetheless, some ownership should be taken. Otherwise, you're never really going to change going forward. And I think what's important to know is that sometimes you may not even realize that you're making excuses for the things that are going on in life. You may not realize that you're saying something can't be done or you failed at this because of A, B, and C, and not realize that that's holding you back. The fact that you're looking at that situation and saying, well, it was the circumstance's fault or it was so-and-so's fault, those subtle excuses that you're making could be what's holding you back from growing and finding happiness, whether that's in your job, your relationship, a hobby, a sport you play, whatever the case may be. We have a lot more control than we typically think we do. You do have the power to dictate how things go in your life, and I get it that there are certain things you cannot control. You can't control your skin color. You can't control your gender. Well, that one might be debatable, but you know what I'm saying? Like there's biological things factors to take into consideration. There's outside factors, the weather, the economy. There's stuff like that that you can't necessarily control, but you do have a lot of control within those circumstances, within the daily decisions that you make, with the way you think and the way you view things. You have a lot of control in that, and ultimately that's what's going to dictate your personal success. Yes, there are going to be circumstances that you can't control and that do play a role to a small degree. In my opinion, the things that you can't control probably account for a percentage of the success you're going to see or not see. The other 99% is going to be the actions that you take. It's going to be your discipline. It's going to be your personality traits, your character, how you do things that are going to ultimately determine where you end up in life. And taking ownership and understanding that you are responsible for that happiness and that you are responsible for the decisions you make and the outcomes that they produce is going to allow you to continue to grow. Because if you can look at a situation and be like, you know what, I really fucked that up by, let's say you're having a conversation with your spouse and you're like, it turns into a fight, you're upset, you're like, well, she is such and this and that and blah, blah, blah. I don't want to say pointing the finger, but you're basically justifying why you said the things that you said and the way you conducted yourself. Because even though you may have acted a little inappropriately or you may have said things that fueled the fire or hurt her, it's perfectly justifiable because she or he was being such a bitch, or whatever the case may be. Well, obviously I spoke to him like that because he spoke to me like this, right? What is the one factor that you need to consider in that argument that you just had? The things you said. Now, you can say that they were fueled by your significant other. You can say that you said them because of that. But that is right there is like one of those subtle excuses that I'm talking about. You may not realize that you're simply making an excuse for your actions. Your actions were what they were, and you're excusing that by saying that you acted this way because A, B, and C. A lot of times we call it justification. You're justifying the way you handled a situation. When you can look at that situation and be like, you know what? Even though I didn't agree with A, B, and C, I probably could have acted a little nicer. Or I probably could have said things in a way that weren't so petty or egotistical or spiteful. I probably could have taken the high road and been a little bit kinder. And I promise you, if both parties in an argument or in a relationship looked at things like that, there would probably never be any arguments. And in fact, that's probably one of the things that has helped Alicia and I so much is the fact that we can both look at a situation and be like, you know what? I'm upset with that person, but maybe I'm the one who's wrong. I don't like the way she handled things, but that doesn't mean I handled things great either. You know, we both do that a lot, and it helps us a lot when we're fighting. If we have an argument, they don't escalate the way that they used to when we were younger because we can both look at that argument and take ownership. Even if I hurt her feelings and she starts crying, she has the maturity to look at the situation and be like, well, I get it that my feelings were hurt and that he did say these mean things to me, but at the same time, maybe I shouldn't have provoked him by saying this or that. Like maybe my actions led to the escalation of that argument. Maybe my actions led to me feeling sad right now because even though he or she said something that made me sad, maybe my actions contributed to that. And that's the kind of ownership I'm talking about. And it doesn't have to be just in a relationship or with communication. This can happen with everything. If you're not happy with the amount of money you're making or the job you have, if you're not happy with how you're progressing through a sport or a musical instrument or anything, something's going on with your car. Being late to work is a huge example that I like to use. When I was in the Marines, and I think this is where I learned a lot of my ownership, but when I was in the Marines, you couldn't excuse anything. Like it didn't matter what happened. If you showed up to work late, you didn't say, well, there was traffic, well, this happened, well, that happened. You said, fuck, I'm sorry, like, what do I got to do? You know, you naturally took ownership. And even if you didn't understand why you were doing it, it's because the Marines like instilled this mindset in us that we had to take ownership for everything that happened, big or small. And showing up late to work happens all the time. And a lot of times people are like, well, I'm sorry, I was caught in traffic. And I'm like, okay, at the surface, yes, that's excusable. If you're driving down the highway and it takes you 15 minutes to get to work every time and you leave 20 minutes early and then there's a traffic that sets you back 30 minutes, no shit, you're going to be late. And sometimes things are a little bit unavoidable, but sometimes excuses are okay, right? But let's say you're a couple minutes late because traffic was a little bit worse than normal. Many people would look at that and be like, that's a completely justifiable excuse. Whereas somebody with personal ownership would say, maybe I should start leaving a little bit sooner. Maybe I should start showing up to work 10 to 15 minutes early just in the case of an accident or just in case something outside of my control happens. That is a perfect example of you taking control of the situation, not letting traffic take control of the situation or whatever outside circumstances there are. Again, sometimes there's going to be things that are excusable. Like when I was in Hawaii, sometimes traffic was a 15-minute drive turned into a 3-hour drive just because of the way the roads were set up, and you really couldn't plan for that. But that was almost like disastrous. Like that was an emergency situation, whereas I'm talking about on a daily basis, you hit some traffic, you're late, you're like, hey, sorry, there was some traffic. Now, that doesn't seem like a big deal to many, but the way we handle small situations is also going to be the way we handle big situations. So if we're used to excusing little mistakes like that, you can be damn sure that we're going to excuse big mistakes like that. And in fact, we're probably going to excuse big mistakes even more because they hurt our ego a little bit more, because they're a little bit more embarrassing. We're not necessarily going to want to take the blame for those big mistakes. But if you get in the habit of taking the blame for pretty much everything that goes on in your life and not blaming the outside circumstances, even with the little things, that's what's going to create a habit and allow you to do that when something bigger happens. And like I said, you're not really going to be able to learn from any situation unless you can take ownership for it. Like, I'm not even kidding. You got to look in the mirror and be like, I fucked up. What did I do wrong? How could I have done this better? What can I do next time that's going to change the outcome? Because you can't go back in time and change the outcome that you're currently experiencing. But if you make that mistake again and again, it's no longer a mistake. Now that's just a personal choice for you to do something fucked up. And it happens because we justify them early on. If you can look at yourself in the mirror and be like, I'm an asshole because I did this and this caused this. That's a hard thing to do. Nobody likes looking in the mirror or looking at their significant other and saying, I'm sorry, I was wrong, or I'm sorry, I messed up. I'm sorry, how can I make this better? But I will promise you, the moment you start doing that, you start getting some self-awareness and some self-realization. You start looking yourself in the eyes, your partner in the eyes, and saying, I was wrong. How can I fix this? You're going to start seeing a lot of personal growth, and you're going to see this everywhere. This is going to translate to bigger things. And the fucking crazy thing is that naturally we think we're going to get in trouble if we take fault for something. If you break something at work and you're like, hey, I'm sorry, I broke that, we think that we're going to get in trouble for it, so we tend to make excuses or sometimes even lie. But what you'll learn is that people tend to respect you a lot more when you take ownership for something. To all my parents out there, think about when your kid does something wrong. Typically they start making excuses or they start lying about it, and that tends to piss us off even more. When our kid is like, I'm so sorry, I got a little wild and I broke this, like they understand that their actions made that happen. At least I know in my family, like we're a lot more forgiving. We're like, well, you know what? I'm not going to beat you up for this because it happened. Did you learn your lesson from it? You understand that you jumping on the couch caused this to happen? Okay, can we grow past that? Can we not do this anymore, right? We treat our kids like that. You'll probably be surprised that other people are going to treat you that way too. If you show up to your boss, if you go to your boss, especially if you like address something before he even comes to you, and you just take ownership for something, like, hey, I broke this. Like, how can I replace this? How can I fix it? There's a good chance he's probably like, hey, no problem. And guess what? He's going to trust you a lot more. I talked about this on the other episode last week, but bosses favor honesty. People in charge, people in a position of power, they do favor honesty. They favor when somebody does take ownership. Because if I want somebody on my team, I want somebody that I can count on. I want somebody that I know is going to learn from their mistakes and improve based upon that lesson. I don't want somebody who's going to constantly justify something on my team. I want people who are going to constantly make excuses or look past the fact that they're the problem. Like I said, sometimes you got to look in the mirror and be like, you know what? I think I'm the problem. Or I think what I did is the problem. There's really no shame in that. And in fact, once you start taking on that role of somebody who takes ownership, you'll probably learn that there's a lot of relief to taking ownership. There's a sense of pride and relief that comes with somebody who can take ownership and say, you know what, I was at fault, how do I fix that? And I think the main reason is because, like I said, that allows you to grow. Once you get into a position where you're not dwelling on the mistakes or you're not trying to justify mistakes, but rather you're just growing from them, that is going to give you a huge sense of relief. It's going to make you a better person. It's going to make you a better spouse. It's going to make you a better parent, a better employee, or a boss, whatever your career is. It's going to make your life better. So I'd like to challenge you going forward. Stop looking for things to blame in life. Stop blaming your skin color. Stop blaming your gender. Stop blaming how tall you are or how short you are. Stop blaming things that are going on out in town or within the community or within the economy. Stop blaming the minimum wage. Like, stop blaming these factors that you cannot control. If you're working a minimum wage job, it's because that's the value you've created for yourself. That would be a great example of somebody taking ownership, is saying, I work this minimum wage job because I haven't created enough value for myself. I don't do anything that's important enough to make more. I don't do anything that's valuable enough for somebody to pay me more than minimum wage. That is personal ownership. And once you hit that point where you're like, you know what? I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing things well enough. Or I'm not doing things valuable enough. That's when you're likely going to get to the point to where you realize you need to change. If you don't ever hit that point, though, you're not going to change. If you say, well, our government's fucked up, so I'm getting paid minimum wage, you're banking on the government to change. You're banking on the people to change. Well, guess what? That's not ever going to happen because there are too many people who do take ownership. There are too many people who do things the right way, who learn from their mistakes, improve upon them, and they're not going to let the system change like that to where it takes away the need for ownership. There's too many people out there who practice ownership. So stop blaming the circumstances that you cannot control. Start focusing on the things you can control. Start on a small scale. Start taking ownership for all the small things that happen in your life. If you get a late fee on your bank statement, don't call your bank all fucking pissed off. Maybe start paying attention to what's going on with your money. If you're not making enough money to pay the bills, don't focus on minimum wage or what the government's doing. Focus on what you're spending weekly. Create a budget. Do something within your life that can control where your money's going. Like I said, I know that not everything is always within our control, and I know that there are outside circumstances that are going to affect that, but that applies to everybody. It's not like once you have more money, that doesn't happen. That still happens. The people who take ownership and learn to pivot and learn to adjust as they go are the ones who are going to find success. Everybody gets hit with bad luck. Everybody has circumstances that don't positively affect them. Nobody out there is lucky. People are working hard and taking ownership, and that's what's allowing people to grow and succeed in life. So if you want to get on that team, if you want to be successful with your job, with your relationship, with your fucking happiness, it's as simple as taking ownership. Start looking at everything in your life as within your control. Start understanding that by learning from your mistakes, you will get better. Accept your failures and own them. That's what ownership is owning what goes on in your life. Don't worry about the things that you cannot control, because there's not as many as the things that you can control. Those things that you can control are going to be the fundamental you. That's what's going to make you you. So if you're not happy with where you're at in life, take a deep look, take a step back and look within yourself. Ask yourself, have you done everything that you can to get to where you want to be? Are you trying every single day? Are you learning from your mistakes? Can you take responsibility for what's happened in your life? Because if you can, I promise you, you're going to grow. You're going to get better at whatever it is you're doing, and you're going to live a happier life. Like I said, there's some sense of fulfillment and relief once you can look at a situation and take a deep breath and say, you know what? I fucked up right here, but I can fix that. That's not going to happen until you can take ownership, though. But once it does, like I said, things are going to get better. So if you're not happy with where you're at in life, in my opinion, that's the best and fastest way to fix it. Once you start taking that ownership, everything else kind of seems to fall into place. People start to respect you more. You start to grow a little bit more. You get better, and you get more out of life. So going forward, try to take ownership, guys. It's like I said, nobody's going to care about your life as much as you. Nobody's going to want your success or do anything to ensure your success as much as you are. So if you want to feel that success, if you want to feel happiness and you want that great life, start owning everything that happens in your life. That's the best way to make it happen. Hopefully this video helped you to gain a new perspective, or to help you take a step back and look at your life and be like, you know what, I could take some more ownership here or there. If this video doesn't sit well with you, then that might mean that, hey, maybe you're not there yet, and that's okay. I'm not going to judge anybody. But the goal of this video was to show you examples of how taking ownership can help you. Show you that we are truly responsible for everything that happens in our lives, and that we cannot grow until we accept that. Once you accept that, the sky is a freaking limit. You're never going to blame any of the circumstances or anything else going on in your life other than your actions or your lack thereof, but that's what's going to allow you to grow. So hopefully this helped you. If you think you know somebody who can benefit from this video, share it with them. You guys know what to do. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Leave a comment. I'd love your feedback. I'd love any questions you guys have. Hit me up on Instagram. My IG handle will be tagged in the description. If you guys want me to go into depth on any other topic, please let me know. Leave a like, leave a comment, do whatever it is you guys got to do to show some love, and I'll see you next time.